Okay, this is a customer's radio, and the first thing we're going to need to do is just remove the back cover to gain access to the battery case, and we're going to have to remove the battery case before we go further. To make life easier, I've completely removed the battery tray by unsoldering from here and here. And now I'd like to show you where the preferred mounting location for the board is. Before I do so, I just want to point out that this is the second of two radios that I'm actually carrying out the installation on. The first had the preamp, which took up the space here, and obviously this one doesn't. I'm showing you this because it's obviously going to be very tempting, given the space available here without the preamp, to install the CTCSS encoder here, but I would strongly recommend against doing so, because if you inadvertently transmit without the antenna extended, or without the external antenna connected to the rear of the radio, you're going to generate huge amounts of RF here, which can upset, or in worst case scenario, reprogram the CT encoder micro. Okay, so the preferred location is going to be sandwiched between the switch unit and the control unit. I'll just take a close-up so that we can show you in greater detail. Okay, this should hopefully give a clearer idea. This is the location for the PBCT1A. It's just slid, as I said earlier on, in between the two boards. One thing that you must be careful about is encroaching upon the connection cables here. I would suggest that what we do is we leave about a 5mm gap between the connectors there and the board edge. And also, if possible, try and get the board so that it's flush with the top board. It's easier then to gain access to the trimmer to adjust the CT level if necessary. Okay, that's the PBCT1A correctly fitted now, in position with the sticky pad provided. Before we make any connections, we need to insert the supplied insulator in between the PBCT1A and the control unit, just to make sure that there's no danger of any components shorting out. Okay, that's the insulator correctly fitted. As you can see, it's just slid over the top of the crystal, which is the most prominent component on the CTCSS board. Okay, the first two connections are going to be made to the regulator board, which is here. I'll take a close-up in a second, but the two connections that are going to be made here are the tone select and the tone out from the PBCT1A. Okay, on the connector here, pins 1 to 13, pin number 9 is the tone output from the tone encoder, which is the green wire. Okay, so we're going to connect the green wire to pin 9. Pin 10 is going to be the tone select button output. Now, what we have to do here is we have to do a couple of things. First of all, we have to cut the track leading from the component here to pin 10, okay, because we're going to bridge this PCB with a diode. And the second thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to cut the wire, the black and white wire, from the front of the connector, but I'll show that in a few seconds. Okay, that's the diode connected between the component and pin 10, which is cathode towards pin 10. Okay, this is the wire that needs to be cut. This comes from the plug, again pin 10, and it's colour coded black and white, and it's next to the green tone wire. So if we just cut that there, and what I'll do is I'll insulate this to protect it from touching any other part of the radio. Basically that wire is the transmit enable wire, so that when it's in normal use and it's connected, by pressing the call button you'll place the transmitter into transmit, or place the radio into transmit. Okay, that's the black and white wire now successfully insulated. So I've just popped some heat shrink on it, and that can now be tucked back behind the loom. Okay, the two wires that are going to connect to pins 9 and 10 are conveniently the green wire to the green wire, as in pin 9, and the blue wire, which is tone select, to pin 10. What I've done here is I've just filed a small notch in the top of the regulator PCB, so that the two wires can sit neatly in that notch, because on top of this board will sit the ground flange of the battery case, and obviously we don't want to be stressing any wires at all, or causing any potential shorts. Okay, that's the two wires in place now, and we'll just have a look at the rest of the cable connections. Okay, the ground wire from the PBCT1A I've connected to the screen here, and then just tucked the cable just out of the way. Okay, the next one that we're going to connect is the supply cable. I'll need to zoom back for that. And what we're going to do is we're going to route this through to the switch that was originally placed on the board by Yaesu for the OEM CTCSS encoder that was originally available as an option. But what we have to do is we have to supply the switch with positive supply, and the two holes that are provided for VCC in and out are just here. So what I'll do is I'll just disconnect the board a minute, unscrew the board, and then I'll show you what we need to do. Okay, so having fed the power wire underneath the metal pillar here, okay, we cut it and solder it to one side of the switch. The remaining piece of wire we then solder to the other hole, which is the other side of the switch. I'll just show you the two connections there. Okay, and then feed it through the PCB to the other side of the radio. Okay, the wire, having been fed through to this side of the radio, is then inserted into the loom and soldered to the pin here, which is plus VCC. You can't miss it. It's got a number of red wires that are all coming from it. It's in the transmit PA section just here. Okay, the next thing to do is to take the orange, which is the PTT enable wire, and the yellow, which is the Morse tone output wire, and carefully feed it through the side of the radio, so that we come out on this side of the board, where we're going to then make the connections to the appropriate points, which I'll have to close up and then show you. But just very briefly, The PTT is in this neck of the woods, and the audio output from the PBCT1A is the middle pin of this back 3 here, that I'll close up. Okay, the centre pin, as I mentioned earlier on, is the Morse tone out, which is where the yellow wire is connected, which has been done, and the PTT is close to the relay, and there's a whole host of orange wires connecting to that pin. I've already soldered the PTT enable from the PBCT1A to it, and fitted into a loom, okay, which you can see with the blue tie wraps there. Okay, all connected now. I've applied power, so what we're going to do is just power up the PBCT1A, just check that it's working and that the tone select button works before connecting the speaker and putting it back together. So we need to be looking in this area here where the board's mounted for obviously the Morse flash. So I'll just power it up, and there we go, we have F, and if I press the tone button repeatedly, that's A, that's B and C, and so it would go on. Okay, so I'll just switch that off. I'm just going to make, because I'm doing this installation myself, I'm going to swoopify it a little bit. I'm going to just put a panel LED, blue panel LED on for the gentleman, so that he's got visual indication from the front panel as well as from the board there when it's all hidden from view. Okay, everything's back together. I just wanted to point out something which is very important, and that is that when you're fitting or refitting the battery case, be very careful to ensure that you don't trap the supply cables coming from the back of the battery case, because you could end up causing a short, which the NICADs aren't going to like, and neither are you if that happens. Okay, the radio's back together. I've set the levels up on the test set, audio deviation plus or minus 2.5 kilohertz, and CTCSS tone plus or minus 300 hertz. Slightly higher than recommended, but I found that some repeaters require a higher CT injection level. Okay, just test the radio. That's default on F. Just check that the call works. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, I'll just lock that in, which isn't going to open the repeater because we need F, so I'll just check that it defaults back to F, which it does. Access the repeater, there we go. So that's fine. What I'll do is just change frequency now, and I will just change the default by powering off, back on, change to 77 Hertz, which is C. Okay, lock that in. That should be now changed, so if I power off and power back on, there we go, it's all working perfectly. Apparently this radio's got a few tales to tell. In the Bristol area, it's meant to be quite famous for some of its escapades, but I'm not allowed to talk about that. You'll probably hear the gentleman on air if you're in the Bristol area, and you might want to ask him about them. Hopefully this video has been of use, and if you've got any queries, please email me, and I'll be more than pleased to answer them. Thanks very much for watching.